about putting people to work and building out this city. It's exactly what everyone said they wanted the national stimulus. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, they both agreed that if the national stimulus would have been essentially a pure infrastructure plan and job creation plan, they'd all be for it, despite all the fighting you hear now. We have that right now in Alexandria, sitting here, the ability to do that. Now, we've made a recommendation. Spark CRA 3, which is Masonic Drive in Lee, which has been GATA's position. The city is unqualifiedly recommending total funding, $2 million out of Spark right now for Clifford Moeller's program and for GATA's program. It's the first one that the administration has given a full green light. We think it's critical now. It's infrastructure, it's permanently owned, it's items, it's sidewalks and everything else. Another part of this stimulus with drainage and with resolving these rebate issues. This is action, ladies and gentlemen. It takes courage on the council's part to now get behind it. But if you want to talk a lot more and labor this on forever, then that's all we're going to end up with. We're 2 years into this program. The program's been ready for months now. There's $40 million in the bank. There's no reason not to move forward right now. There's no reason not to move forward. And I'm going to switch and just show everybody at home that hasn't seen it before. You don't have to say anything about it. It's super short. The symbol for Spark. In 2008, we embarked on the largest reinvestment project in this city's history. $100 million almost. It's 96. What does Spark serve? It serves this: infrastructure improvements in the places most in need, underserved, and blighted. 90% of the money, permanent publicly owned infrastructure. The remaining 10%, business incentives in order to foster private sector employment and investment. This is the exact ratio that everybody probably originally wanted to see in our national package. I hate to say it that way, but that's the case. We've got it right here in Alexandria, and we're not acting on it. We're not answering our questionnaires. We're not doing all the things that we need to do. And I appreciate all the councilmen who have answered those questionnaires. I think there are 4 in. They've been out there since October. We identified 3 corridors. It comes from the information that citizens have already paid for in multiple studies. Go look at our J-Quad study. Probably the best study we have about our housing stock and all. When this stimulus money comes down and we're talking about CDBG funds and all, we're going to be looking to that for a lot of our information. It's excellent work. Minority company, they did it. The only company that's had a full-blown agreement with Spark so far has been a minority company. And they're right here, ready to finish their job. But what are we doing? We're not moving it forward. Here are the 3 CRAs. Downtown and Riverfront, that's this whole area inside of I-49 from the port to the end of the city, inside of 49 basically, along the river. Second one, Bolton Avenue and North MacArthur Drive. Third one, Lee Street and Masonic. GATA has presented. It's no surprise. They've been working on it a long time. But instead of waiting to try to time it with other things, we recommend GATA today, right now. I've told Mr. Moeller I'm behind it. It's now up to the City Council.
John.
Yes, sir.
I noticed that some of the announcements that have come out, some of the fast track projects have kind of moved into the stimulus stuff.
Some of them did, yes, sir.
When we do that, will that avail us to those funds later down the road to use for even more?
Assuming you get the stimulus funds, I want to make it clear. The other day we saw SUSEC came up. Remember, the stimulus started with a lot more local items coming in. SUSEC is part of the MPO aspect. So all the transportation parts of the stimulus, they used to exist in 2 forms. Under the Surface Transportation Program, STP, which is subject to your MPO, your local group of leaders deciding which should be prioritized as number 1. And then they just had a bunch of other programs that locals were said were shovel ready. Basically, ladies and gentlemen, that second set was basically, it's gone. So what you're looking at now for the transportation pieces was, what does your local MPO say is the one ready in your area? Well, Central Louisiana, you got $10 million to SUSEC, but we all agreed on that. I agreed with Clarence. We all as local leaders said he was next, he was due, so when the stimulus comes down through the MPO, he gets it, so that's where your SUSEC project went. On the other items that you're talking about, that's why we want to be careful. This thing has been a moving target, Mr. Fowler, from day one. I was getting a policy report every day, and you have to follow it. I have the latest one. I will give it to you when we leave that shows. Well, the point is, the projects that we listed that are the subject of websites about whether they're appropriate and all these things, the truth is a lot simpler than that. We filled out a U.S. Conference of Mayors questionnaire, a survey, to look at what our shovel-ready projects were. It was simple. The incoming president needed some way to find out what local projects were out there. They used the Conference of Mayors to find out from the source that would know it best what the projects were. What are all the projects that are happening in cities? And then they use that to determine how much they would approach Congress, Mr. Silver, for the stimulus. So when you see this list that Alexandria gave, this was a survey. They asked us to fill it out that way, and it led to those projects. We tried to be focused on shovel-ready under that definition and job creating. Shovel-ready is critical to remember. So you can't put everything in fast track in it, and some of the councilmen said, hey, can we go back and relook at it? Of course you can, but if it wasn't shovel-ready, we couldn't have put it in there. There's a lot of fast track projects that weren't engineered and ready to go. That's what we put in there. So yes, in theory, as stimulus money comes in, you would be able to then move those out and move fast track forward. But fast track has some critical drainage and other projects in it that we think can move forward under this. This is the time to act, ladies and gentlemen. Large-scale catalytic redevelopment project based on plans that we've had and documented the need for over a decade, really, over a decade. Here they are. That's CRA 1. As you can see, it takes in part of Mr. Larverdane's district. This is District, Council District 1, that's around the port area. This is District 3, all Mr. Goins. It's basically inside of 49 and the border of the city that's the river and the outer edge. That's CRA 1. Number 2 is all basically in Mr. Larverdane's district, and that's it. In this area here, number 3 is the Masonic Drive corridor that GATA has been working on, and it's a little bit expanded out. And there are lots of different things. GATA right now has a proposal. I encourage people to look at it, what the funding would be for. It's hard infrastructure funding they're requesting. You're going to own it. It's not going to be a bad thing to do. It's going to be something we need to have happen in the city. And so that's where we are. I implore the council, gentlemen, as leaders, to think very hard about these next weeks. Do this thing. Let's get moving. Let's move forward. There are plenty of other issues that we'll have to debate and go through in the next years to come, but this is something we can do now. And off your plate comes drainage issues that we need to be moving on. Spark gets started, which it needs to, along with the stimulus that goes with it, and most importantly, perhaps, just to get it out of the way, the CLECO case. 3 things off the plate, ready to go. Thank you very much, and I'll answer any questions. No questions? Mr. Fowler said it wasn't that good.
It's quite a lot to digest at the same time. So, just to summarize it, just to make sure that everybody has it, it's, as you said, it's 3 things. Drainage, cleaning up what we currently have, going to CLECO, putting aside $9 million and looking for a rebate. Of course, this is something to be up to the council to go as far as getting on with the CRA gate at $2 million right after that.
Right.
Is that a very nut grant?
Probably that's pretty fair. The middle one you stated about the $9 million, I think we can clean up how we state that. But yeah, the idea is this is a pretty big project that you start right away with GATA. But I want to say that it's not the only CRA that's kind of ready to go. There are things happening in CRA 1 and CRA 2. Not all the folks have presented yet, so there aren't public records yet to give out to you. But the things in CRA 2, remember, were sort of our smaller version of a Perkins Road type. Those are the kind of things we sought. Those things are out there, ladies and gentlemen, and there are people ready to present, but they're going to need significant public partnering to do it. And so you have to ask yourself, you know, we talk about the things that maybe we're unsure about partnering on. We have a lot of debates about the hotels and how to do that in this economy. But one thing's for sure, if you're talking about doing hard infrastructure improvements like Mr. Moeller's talking about on Masonic, but you're talking about doing it in Mr. Larverdane's district on North MacArthur and on down Bolton, and those things are going to result in many cases, the same publicly owned, permanently owned items, along with incentives to really drive a large-scale development on North MacArthur, big mixed-use development. So you go back to the model that the feds and no one has helped us with now, where maybe we're talking about doing some street work to offset those costs, but then you attract somebody to come in. That's what TIFs are for. That's what all those things are for. People come in and then they're able to respond. You do that, and you're talking about putting a lot of folks to work in a pretty depressed time. We don't wax and wane like other parts of the country. We're lucky in Louisiana. It's more like this. But the reason for that isn't a good thing. The reason for that is because we're a poor state. But this will help us right now, and it'll put people to work. And that was the design of Spark RT. It's always been the design. I'm proud to support Mr. Moeller's efforts right now. I think they've been working on this and working on this. We were riding the trolley bus yesterday, which, by the way, because I noticed the Town Talk put in that it was $29,000 for the two buses. What I think was neglected to have been put in is that their value is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's what about $200,000, we got them for $30. So when you see those buses around town, you're not wasting money there. You're doing something that you need these buses anyway. You talk about getting a good value anyway.
From this announcement right here, where does this go? Straight to the council's plate?
If over the weekend some of the councilmen talk to me as they've been talking to me, which is to say that they're supportive, you know, without anybody doing things that are wrong, you got to learn to count your votes in life. What you want to do is probably put together a resolution now, which is unbinding, but allows the council to declare its legislative will for us to move forward on all these items. Some of the items will require an ordinance, others won't. But if we're given that, it is my intention to turn much of the Spark management over to Mr. Moeller at Gata anyway, not just CRA 3, the whole thing, and to allow a commission to be formed by groups of economic entities that already exist instead of creating new ones, and hopefully get this thing off center. Clifford and I have been, Mr. Moeller and I, excuse me, have been talking for some months about how to work these things, work through the politics, work through hurt feelings, old feelings, new feelings, and everything else. And that's where we find ourselves today. And Mr. Moeller may or may not have comments now, or you can talk to him about that later. But I have asked him point blank if he would come on to be essentially the entire city's head driver for all of Spark, not just CRA 3. That's it? Anybody else? You didn't know that one was coming, did you, RT?
No, I
Good. It's good to surprise people every once in a while. Now, look, that's all subject to Mr. Moeller's board. He's got his own issues with his board. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think we're moving in the right direction there. All right. Thank you.